The emergence. The Prussian Empire had ruled the Orient sector with merciless efficiency for 3 centuries. Their sleek, obsidian warships moved through the void like predators, methodical and unstoppable. Species after species had fallen before them, their worlds either becoming vassals or smoldering ruins. The Prussians themselves were cold, calculating beings with slate gray skin and 4 eyes that seemed to process everything as data rather than experience. Their technological superiority was matched only by their absolute conviction in their right to rule. Commander Valix of the Alliance flagship, Resilient, watched through the bridge viewports as another of their cruisers erupted into a brilliant flash against the darkness of space. That made 3 ships lost in the last hour alone. The battle over Lyra 7, a critical supply world for the Alliance, was going exactly as every engagement with the Prussians went: poorly. Shields at 28%, reported his tactical officer, a Setani whose bioluminescent patterns flickered with stress. 2 more Prussian dreadnoughts have entered the system. Valix's 4-fingered hand tightened around the command rail. The Alliance of Free Worlds, a desperate coalition of 12 species that had banded together in defiance of Prussian rule, was fighting a war they couldn't win. But surrender meant extinction, so they fought anyway. "Maintain formation," Valix ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Reroute emergency power to forward shields and prepare tow." "Commander." The sensor officer interrupted, her voice rising with confusion. Unknown signature detected at the edge of the system. "Prussian reinforcements?" Valix asked, his heart sinking. "No, sir. The energy signature doesn't match any known configuration in our database. It's massive." The main display flickered to life, showing a distant point of light that rapidly grew larger. The object moved at impossible speed, far faster than any ship Valix had ever seen. As it approached, details began to resolve. It was a warship, but unlike anything in the known galaxy, where Prussian vessels were sleek and elegant, this ship was brutally functional. Its hull was matte black with red striping, bristling with what appeared to be weapon systems. It was smaller than a Prussian dreadnought, but somehow more intimidating, like comparing a surgical scalpel to a sledgehammer. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies," the communications officer reported in disbelief. Static filled the bridge, then a clear voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Morgan Shaw of the human military vessel Devastator. We detected your distress signal. Looks like you could use some help." The bridge crew of the Resilient exchanged bewildered glances. Human. There was no record of such a species in Alliance databases, and how had they detected a distress signal sent through secured Alliance channels? Before Valix could respond, the unknown vessel, the Devastator, accelerated toward the heart of the battle. The Prussian fleet, momentarily confused by this new arrival, quickly regained their composure. 3 of their destroyers broke formation to intercept the interloper. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "the Prussians are targeting the unknown vessel." Valix nodded grimly. Whoever these humans were, they were about to learn why the Prussian Empire had dominated the sector for centuries. He felt a pang of regret for their imminent destruction. The Prussian destroyers fired in unison, energy beams lancing across space toward the Devastator. Valix expected to see the unknown ship vaporize under the concentrated firepower that could crack a moon. Instead, the human vessel shifted. There was no other word for it. In a maneuver that should have been physically impossible, the Devastator seemed to slide sideways through space itself, the deadly energy beams passing harmlessly through the void it had occupied microseconds before. "Impossible," breathed Valix's executive officer. The Devastator didn't just evade, it countered. What happened next would forever change Valix's understanding of warfare. The human ship fired, not energy weapons like the civilized species used, but some kind of physical projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. The first Prussian destroyer simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of superheated particles. The second suffered a more visible fate. Its midsection punched clean through before secondary explosions tore it apart. The third destroyer attempted to retreat, but the Devastator fired again. Smaller weapons this time, dozens of them tracking the fleeing vessel with unnerving precision. The Proxian ship's shields flared briefly before collapsing, and then the destroyer itself broke apart under the relentless barrage. Silence fell across the Resilience bridge as the crew stared at their displays in stunned disbelief. 3 Proxian destroyers, eliminated in less than 30 seconds. Status report on the human vessel, Valix demanded, finding his voice. No detectable damage, replied the tactical officer. They're engaging the Proxian main fleet now. The main view screen showed the Devastator diving straight toward the heart of the Proxian formation, a tactic so suicidally reckless that Valix could scarcely believe it. But the human ship moved with impossible agility, weaving through the Proxians' coordinated fire as if their gunners were children. The Devastator fired again and again, each shot devastating. Where Proxian weapons were elegant beams of energy, the humans used brute force, kinetic weapons, missiles carrying exotic payloads, and something that seemed to distort space itself around target vessels. The Proxian flagship is signaling a retreat, reported the communications officer, disbelief evident in her voice. Commander, the entire Proxian fleet is withdrawing. Valix watched as the once mighty Proxian armada, which had been methodically dismantling the Alliance fleet, broke formation and fled. Several ships didn't make it, destroyed by the relentless Devastator as they attempted to escape. When the last Proxian vessel had disappeared into hyperspace, the human ship slowly turned toward the battered Alliance fleet. After a moment, the communication system activated again. Alliance vessels, this is Captain Shaw. Area secure. Permission to approach and render assistance. Valix exchanged glances with his officers. What choice did they have? This unknown ship had just accomplished what the entire Alliance fleet couldn't, driving off a Proxian attack force. Permission granted, Captain Shaw, Valix replied. And thank you. 6 hours later, Valix stood in the Resilience conference room alongside representatives from the other surviving Alliance vessels. Across from them sat Captain Morgan Shaw, the first human any of them had ever seen. Shaw was surprisingly similar to several Alliance species, bipedal with 2 arms and a single head. The captain stood slightly taller than Valix, with dark skin, close-cropped gray hair, and alert brown eyes that seemed to evaluate everything. Shaw wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia, practical, like the human ship. You've never heard of humans before today, Shaw said. It wasn't a question. No, Valix admitted. Our records contain no mention of your species. Shaw smiled slightly. That's by design. We've kept ourselves hidden, watching the galaxy for centuries. Why reveal yourselves now? Asked Kelsa, the Novan representative whose crystalline features reflected the room's lighting. Because you're losing, Shaw replied bluntly. The Proxian Empire has been expanding unchecked for too long. We've observed their methods. They don't stop until everything is conquered or destroyed. And you think you can defeat them? Valix couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice, despite what he'd witnessed. The Proxian Empire controls thousands of star systems. They have hundreds of warships like the ones you face today. Shaw's expression hardened. The Devastator is just one ship, our first deep space explorer. There are more coming. The implications of that statement hung in the air. If one human vessel could turn the tide of a battle so completely, why would you help us? Asked Telix, the Mantid representative. What do humans gain from this conflict? We have our reasons, Shaw said, something dark flickering behind those eyes. Let's just say we have experience with extinction-level threats. We don't intend to watch another civilization fall. Valix studied the human captain carefully. There was something Shaw wasn't saying. Something about humanity's past that had driven them to intervene in this war. Your technology, Valix said. It's unlike anything we've seen. The way your ship moved, your weapons. Different development path, Shaw explained. While most spacefaring civilizations discovered energy-based propulsion and weapons, humanity focused on manipulating gravity and mass. Our ships don't push against space. They bend it. And your weapons? Pressed Kelsa. Kinetic kill vehicles, mostly. Why use energy to destroy something when good old-fashioned momentum will do the job more efficiently? Shaw's smile returned, but it didn't reach those calculating eyes. We find there's an elegant simplicity to it. Velix felt a chill. These humans approached warfare with a pragmatism that bordered on ruthlessness. Yet they had saved the Alliance fleet when they had no obligation to intervene. What happens now? Velix asked. Now, Shaw said, standing, we prepare. The Proxians will return with everything they have. Today was just the beginning. As if to emphasize the point, a communication alert sounded. Velix's aide approached with a data pad, his expression grim. Commander, we're receiving reports from across Alliance space. The Proxians are mobilizing their entire fleet. They're recalling ships from all sectors. Shaw nodded as if expecting this. They're coming for us. All of us. The human looked around the room at the assembled Alliance representatives. You have a choice to make. Continue fighting alone as you have been, and lose, or fight alongside humanity. And if we choose the latter? Velix asked. Then we bring the war to them, Shaw said with quiet intensity. The Proxians have never faced an enemy who could truly hurt them. They don't know what it means to fight for survival. The captain's gaze swept the room. But humans do. And we're very, very good at it. The counterattack. The Proxian High Command Chamber was in chaos. Supreme Executor Vexel, the highest military authority in the Empire, watched the holographic replay for the third time with cold fury. The recording showed 3 Proxian destroyers, pinnacles of their engineering, being obliterated by a single unknown vessel. Impossible, hissed Science Director Nylax, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. No species possesses such technology. Evidently, Vexel replied icily. One does. The assembled Proxian leadership, 12 of the Empire's most powerful individuals, shifted uncomfortably. Defeat was a concept foreign to them. The Proxian Empire had not suffered a significant military setback in over a century. What do we know about these humans? Demanded Vexel. Intelligence Director Trazek stepped forward, his movements stiff with tension. Very little, Supreme Executor. They appear to have remained hidden from galactic society until now. Their technological base is concerning. Initial analysis suggests their propulsion and weapons systems operate on principles our scientists cannot yet explain. Their interference cannot be tolerated, Vexel declared. The Alliance rebels were nearly broken. Now they will rally around this new ally. We are recalling our fleets from all quadrants, Trazek reported. Within 20 cycles, we will have assembled the largest battle group in Proxian history. Vexel's eyes narrowed. Good. We will crush this human vessel and any others like it. The natural order will be restored. None of the assembled leaders voiced the unspoken fear that had entered the chamber with the recording. What if, for the first time in living memory, the Proxian Empire had met its match? On board the Alliance Station Horizon, a sprawling space facility hidden in the Cygnus Nebula, Captain Morgan Shaw stood before a holographic display showing the tactical situation across the sector. Around the table stood Alliance military leaders from a dozen species, all watching the human with a mixture of hope and wariness. Commander Velix entered the chamber, data pad in hand. The intelligence is confirmed. The Proxians are gathering their forces. Nearly 80% of their fleet is converging on their core worlds. Shaw nodded. As expected, they're preparing for a massive counterattack, which we cannot hope to withstand, said General Korex of the Arcturian Defense Force, his scaled skin flushing with anxiety. Even with your vessel's capabilities, Captain Shaw, the combined might of the Proxian Armada is overwhelming. The Devastator won't be fighting alone, Shaw replied, tapping controls on the holographic display. The image shifted to show a region of empty space near the edge of the sector. "I've received word from Fleet Command. The main battle group has arrived." The display updated, revealing 7 vessels that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. They varied in size and configuration, but all shared the distinctive human design philosophy: functional, intimidating, bristling with weapons. A murmur ran through the assembled Alliance leaders. 7 ships. Korex scoffed. Against hundreds of Proxian vessels. Shaw's expression remained calm. "Quality over quantity, General. Each of these ships is commanded by our finest officers and equipped with technology centuries beyond what the Proxians possess. Perhaps it's time you told us more about humanity," Valix suggested, studying Shaw carefully. "Where you come from, why you've remained hidden, why you're really helping us." For a moment, Shaw was silent, weighing the request. Then, with a slight nod, the captain began to speak. "Earth, our homeworld, is located in a region of space far from here, beyond the reach of either the Alliance or the Proxians. For millennia, we developed in isolation, unaware of galactic civilization." Shaw's expression darkened. 300 years ago, we were visited by an alien species. They came not in peace, but to conquer. They saw Earth as just another world to subjugate. The chamber had grown silent, all eyes fixed on the human. The invaders possessed technology far beyond our own. They expected an easy victory. Shaw's voice took on an edge of pride. They were wrong. Humanity united against them, and what we lacked in technology, we made up for in determination and adaptability. "You defeated them?" asked Valix, surprised. "Eventually, yes, but the cost was catastrophic. Billions died. Parts of Earth were rendered uninhabitable. In the aftermath, we salvaged their technology, reversed engineered it, improved upon it. We vowed never to be vulnerable again." Shaw looked around the chamber. "For centuries, we rebuilt and expanded cautiously into our own star system, then to nearby systems. We developed technologies specifically designed for warfare, always preparing for the possibility of another encounter with a hostile species. But you remained hidden," Valix observed. "We established outposts and listening posts throughout this region of the galaxy. We observed, gathered intelligence, evaluated potential threats and allies," Shaw explained. "When we detected the conflict between the Alliance and the Proxians, we recognized the pattern. The Proxians' methods, their belief in their inherent right to rule, echoed those of our first invaders. So this is personal for you," Korex concluded. "It's existential," Shaw corrected. "The Proxians represent exactly the kind of threat we've been preparing to face for centuries. If they conquer the Alliance, they'll eventually discover Earth. We've chosen to confront them now, on our terms, rather than wait for them to find us." The revelation settled over the chamber. Humanity hadn't intervened out of altruism, but from a calculated decision to eliminate a future threat. Yet their interests aligned perfectly with the Alliance's survival. "What do you propose, Captain?" Valix asked. Shaw returned to the holographic display. "The Proxians expect us to defend, to react to their massive offensive. We won't. Instead, we'll strike at their heart." The display zoomed in on the Proxian home system, a heavily fortified star with 7 planets, all bristling with defensive installations. "This is insanity," Korex protested. "Their home system is impenetrable." "No defense is impenetrable," Shaw replied calmly, "especially when the defender doesn't expect an attack." Shaw outlined the plan, a daring, multi-pronged assault that would utilize human stealth technology to penetrate deep into Proxian space. The Alliance fleet would engage the Proxian armada near the border regions, appearing to mount a desperate defense. Meanwhile, the human ships would slip past the main Proxian forces and strike directly at their command and control infrastructure. "We don't need to destroy their entire fleet," Shaw explained. "Just cripple their ability to coordinate it. Without central command, the Proxian military structure becomes vulnerable." The Alliance leaders debated the plan for hours, pointing out risks and suggesting modifications. Throughout it all, Shaw listened, adapted, incorporated their knowledge of Proction tactics. By the time consensus was reached, the initial plan had evolved into something more complex but more robust, a true collaboration between human strategic thinking and alliance experience. As the meeting concluded, Valix approached Shaw privately. "Your plan may work, Captain. But even if it does, the Proctions will still outnumber us. This won't end the war." "No," Shaw agreed, "but it will change it fundamentally. The Proctions have never experienced defeat on their home ground. The psychological impact will be devastating to their command structure and their certainty of victory." Valix studied the human, seeing beyond the calm exterior to the calculated ruthlessness beneath. "Your species is formidable, Captain Shaw. I'm grateful you're on our side." Shaw's smile was thin. "So am I, Commander. So am I." 3 days later, the largest battle in the history of the sector erupted along the borders of Proction space. The Alliance fleet, reinforced by 2 human vessels, engaged the Proction armada in what appeared to be a desperate last stand. The Proctions, confident in their overwhelming numbers, pressed the attack relentlessly. Meanwhile, cloaked in technologies that bent light and masked energy signatures, 5 human ships slipped through Proction detection grids, penetrating deeper into enemy territory than any Alliance vessel had ever gone. At their head was the Devastator, with Captain Shaw standing calmly on the bridge as they approached the heart of the Proction Empire. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels," reported Lieutenant Chen, the operations officer. "No indication they've detected us." Shaw nodded, studying the tactical display. The Proction homeworld loomed ahead, a blue-green sphere surrounded by orbital platforms and defense stations. The linchpin of the entire operation was the Central Command Node, a massive space station where the Proction military coordinated their entire war effort. "All ships, final positions," Shaw ordered. "Prepare to execute on my mark." The 5 human vessels moved into formation, each targeting a specific component of the Proction command infrastructure. Timing would be everything. They would have only moments between revealing their presence and the Proctions mounting a response. 3, 2, 1. Execute. Across 5 points in the Proction home system, human warships simultaneously decloaked and fired. The Devastator targeted the Central Command Node directly, launching a barrage of specialized munitions designed not to destroy the station but to disable its communications and defensive systems. Proction response was immediate but disorganized. They had never expected an enemy to reach their homeworld, and their defensive protocols were oriented outward, not inward. Station after station went dark as precision strikes severed communication links and power systems. On the bridge of the Devastator, Shaw watched the operation unfold with clinical detachment. "Status of primary target. Central Command Node is offline," Chen reported. "Their quantum communication network is collapsing system-wide." Throughout Proction space, their carefully coordinated fleet operations began to break down. Without the central command structure to coordinate their movements, individual fleet commanders were forced to make tactical decisions in isolation, something they had little experience with after centuries of centralized control. At the border, the Alliance fleet, which had appeared to be fighting a losing battle, suddenly pressed forward. The Proction forces, confused by contradictory orders and the loss of strategic coordination, began to fragment. "Message from Admiral Vexel," announced the communications officer. "Text only. They're requesting terms of surrender." A hush fell over the Devastator's bridge. After centuries of tyrannical rule, the mighty Proction Empire was suing for peace. Shaw's expression remained unchanged. "Transmit our pre-prepared response. They surrender unconditionally, or we continue to their secondary command centers." Hours later, as the human and Alliance fleets consolidated their unprecedented victory, Shaw stood in the observation deck of the Devastator, looking out at the Proction homeworld. Commander Valix joined the captain, still appearing slightly dazed by the day's events. "It's over," Valix said quietly. The Supreme Executor has surrendered. The Prussian Empire is defeated. Not defeated. Shaw corrected. Transformed. There's a difference. What happens now? Shaw turned from the viewport. Now the real work begins. The Prussians must be integrated into a new galactic order, one based on cooperation rather than domination. It won't be easy. Centuries of imperial thinking won't disappear overnight. And humanity's role in this new order? Valix asked carefully. We'll help establish it, then step back. Shaw replied. We didn't intervene to replace one empire with another. Earth has no interest in ruling the stars. Commander, only in ensuring they remain free from those who would. Valix studied the human with new understanding. Your species is full of contradictions, Captain Shaw. You build warships of unparalleled destructive capability, yet use them to end wars rather than prolong them. That's humanity in a nutshell. Shaw agreed with a slight smile. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. We build weapons to preserve peace. We remain hidden until we choose to be seen. As the two stood in companionable silence, watching the stars, a new chapter in galactic history was beginning, one shaped by the unexpected arrival of a species that had learned the hardest lessons of survival and was determined that others would not have to do the same. The human warship had changed everything, and the stars would never be the same.